FBI said 15% of all cybercrimes are reported. So you look at all these numbers of trillions of dollars in loss and you're like, it's got to be a small fraction of what's actually out there and being actually, taken away from victims. And there are a variety of reasons for that. Obviously, there's, you have to know that you're being attacked, and there's an incident, something's in your system. But also there's shame involved in some cases. Sometimes you feel like you might be blamed for the crime. I think a lot of it is they feel foolish. Maybe they feel like, law enforcement just won't be able to help them. They see the numbers, trillions of dollars, and they're like, well, I only lost 17,000 or whatever it is. Like mine is so minor. But again, especially from a law enforcement perspective, I encourage everybody to report because A, we can't help you. We can't prevent future victims from being victimized. And also, I think it's the way for law enforcement to understand emerging criminal methodologies.
We have a tendency to share stories when these cyber criminals were successful, when we were breached, when we were a victim. It's equally important to share these stories where you had these cases, of course, of prevention and also where these cyber criminals failed, right? It often boosts their reputation when we come out with stories that say, they were highly sophisticated and successful in breaching organization X, Y, or Z and causing millions of dollars in damages. But, cases that we have seen, for instance, with law enforcement against groups like Lockbit, also when you, for instance, disrupt them or when you're a victim, point out that they have not been deleting data, point out that they have been making mistakes, undermine also that branding element that these groups carry with them.
I think we need to also take into account the full range of small, medium enterprises. How do we make sure that they're protected? What's their role? And we'll need new approaches similar to digital public infrastructure for cybersecurity. What are the tools and capabilities that we make available as a kind of public infrastructure to small, medium enterprises and smaller states that don't necessarily have those capabilities? And I think one telltale sign is when you see a political leader or a state government using a Gmail or Hotmail address because they actually have higher confidence in the security of these tools than they necessarily do in their own IT systems.
Up until now, the interplay between government and the private sector has been a little bit of, it's not my responsibility, it's your responsibility, and the cost should be on you. I think we need to change that mindset. So investing in security by design or resilience by design is seen as a shared responsibility. So on the one hand, the government is being sure to bring the private sector into, scenario-based planning. Conversely, government also has to provide the incentives.
And for those of us in the cybersecurity domain, we've been familiar with this concept of shadow IT. Whatever the official device policy was, users would go out and find their own path, their own tools. They often perform better, they're easier to use, they were mobile friendly, and people would use their own tools and bring them to the office, and that created a vulnerability. What we see now is that people have moved from shadow IT to shadow AI, right? And so, it's like, okay, whatever the, corporate sponsored, LLM model was that wasn't as well branded as the commercial options, people just, vote with their feet, use their phone, and are using these.
Added now a new curriculum focused on AI. And in that AI curriculum, provided things in every single chapters about cybersecurity, safety, ethics, security of how you use this AI. And even prior to that, in the national type of curriculum, there are some cybersecurity awareness. Imagine this goes from KG1.
At the time, copyright was too onerous. It was too restrictive to allow for sort of free flow of knowledge, remixing of creativity, etc. And so the Creative Commons license suite was born. It's this idea that you give credit back to the original creator, and in this beautiful way, the sort of like web of creativity and knowledge sort of spreads throughout the world. how will people keep engaging with that knowledge project? How will you bring in new editors? How will you find supporters? I mean, they have massive small dollar donation campaigns at the end of every year that help keep that public good online. But if no one goes back there, how will they know that this is something that is so valuable that is worth contributing to? Within the sort of Creative Commons, movement and community, we used to say, that when we share, everybody wins because everybody benefits from us sharing things. And if we do not find a way to restore balance to the information ecosystem, that goes away. When we think about reciprocity in the age of AI, what we would very much like to do and instill sort of into the value system of, should we say, like ethical or public interest AI, is that if you are benefiting from something that is openly available and that people are freely contributing to, that you find a way to give back to that. Everything has been reduced to data, and then that is used for training. And then those models, there's applications being built on top of it that might be being sold back to us. And this is what we could all previously benefit from. So it seems to make sense to us that in those instances, it would be prudent to share some of those benefits back with the broader open community. If you are a major technology company and you have massive revenues as a result of training on the commons, our strong preference would be that you consider how you can reciprocate back to that ecosystem, because fundamentally, that is the ecosystem on which this quote-unquote innovation and technology has taken place.